Hi, in this video I want to discuss how we're all victims and we're all violators based on circumstance and how circumstance controls us and every thing surrounding everything that we do. Obviously, there's no way to avoid it. Like I've mentioned before, you can't avoid things, especially when the circumstance, you can't blame the circumstance. There's no way you can avoid things that are happening once they've already happened. They've already happened. You can only do it based on a preconceived notion of the ability to control yourself beforehand, and that control is only a mechanism of the deterministic mechanism that's running us to begin with. So we're being run by a mechanism that makes us think that we're controlling ourselves, but is controlling based on a preconceived effect that caused all these things to happen. So these we're based on a cause and effect, where things are based on a cause and effect, and we're just reflexive machines reacting to every single cause and effect that's happened to us and around us, and we're just part of that machine, being a cause and effect ourselves, being a piece of that mechanism, causing and affecting, reacting, and we're everything in between the initial cause and the effect that happens in the end is a reaction that's happening. Regardless, you can call it a cause and effect, but every single thing happening between there is just reaction. We're just reactionary machines that can feel and have value. I guess that's a distinction you can make, is that we're just reactions, just like everything else that's happening in the middle, cause effect, whatever you want to call it in any other word, but more exactly, and then the dichotomy of cause and effect, you can call everything a reaction, or a reaction based on that singular idea that there's something causing and affecting. But I didn't say more accurately that a cause and effect in every reaction that happens is more of a direct way to describe it, a more accurate way to describe the circumstances that allow us to do or to make us do what we're doing. And it's just that preconceived that notion where we think we have control. In reality, things that we're controlling have already passed us, that we think we're controlling or have already taken place based on the fact that we're just value machines that can think about it and give ideas to. The ideas exist regardless of us and making those decisions, because those things would happen to us anyway, say if we didn't exist or if we were dead and things were happening regardless. If we weren't aware but things were still happening, they would happen a certain way regardless, but things are only going to happen one way. And that's where the another thing can obviously come into play. But obviously, it's just the fact that we have value and we can think. If the thinking didn't come with awareness, the things would happen a certain way regardless, and it didn't take that preconceived notion for things to happen a certain way. Just things happen a certain way, and that preconceived notion is just another effect that happened to exist and happens to have the effect of all these other things happening, and it just happens to be another piece in the puzzle that's moving along. And it's only the awareness of it that makes it seem like there's some kind of value in the ability to change those things. And in reality, that's not something that can be changed. It's something that's already happening. Um, so it's something that we have no control over, but it's an illusion of control, which gives us the control that we need when it's coming to the mechanism that we're doing, that we're involved in. We get the control that we need to the certain extent, but sometimes we don't, because we realize that this mechanism is beyond our control. And there's only so much that we can do to control the mechanism as much as we can. So we think we have control, but we don't realize just how good it would be if we had that full control, but the full control isn't possible. We have to realize, yes, things happen against our will and we don't like it. That's why things happen, is because they're against our will. Cause and effect, reactions, we're just reactionary machines in the middle of this that can feel and be aware of those things that we can call reactions and give ideas to, but they'd happen anyway to our bodies. But yes, it's beyond our control. There's only so much we can do to control that mechanism, and it's a mechanism that's part of the mechanism of reality. There's only so much we can do. I really like saying that there's only so much we can do. Yeah, but there really is. It's a mechanism beyond our control. It exists on its own, regardless of what notions we have, because that's all they are. Basic ideas, notions. Um, I mean, it's a really simple idea. There's nothing really else to mention on the idea. Simple, basic, nothing much to it. Circumstance victims. We're victims. We're violators. There's nothing we could do. We're all violators to a certain extent, even though it's not necessarily causation, it's correlation, or whatever you want to call it. We are all correlated on a certain level in the reactions that happen in the victimization, but we're also victims and violators at the same time, because we're being violated, and that violation is causing us to be victims, and those victimization causes us to be violators, and so on and so forth. So it's just a feeding mechanism, almost synonymous with the fact that it's against consent. Everything that's happening is against our consent to a certain extent. When things are happening there, regardless, and it doesn't obviously null and void. Obviously, on a certain level, like I was mentioning, we can assign blame and say, yes, you are uncalled for doing this, therefore I mean, it really comes down to like the confusion of applying this to like um, a system of law. Yeah, you're still going to blame the people that, you're going to still blame the person that committed the act of violation, or the act of the crime, but that doesn't mean that they had the control over it. They still are victims, but that doesn't mean they can't be blamed. So vice versa, it works both ways. But yes, you can be blamed, and that's the level I'm talking about. Like sort of the level that you can be blamed is the same level where we have the amount of control that we have. We have the control to be victims of the understanding of the natural way of things moving forward, but we're not necessarily the ones controlling it. We're not the ones that initiated the act. We're just processing in that act. We're the processing, or the synapses of the firing electricity in the middle of the living thing being born, whatever it may be. Something like that is used as an analogy, but that's the basic idea. Um, and more than anything else, I don't think there's anything else to mention. The ideas are pretty basic. Um, just by victims and a crude force is controlling value machines, whatever. But yeah, that's the basic idea. Being controlled by our environment, being controlled by the forces that control us, the forces that don't feel. Therefore, the consent that they're giving us is not, they're not giving us any consent based on the fact that they don't feel, and therefore, whatever they are, because obviously they don't have a consciousness, or the forces are just there. We're in the forces themselves, we're part of the forces, we're ones that can create the forces, but those forces can only be controlled so much. But the thing is, every force that we're part of is against us, and the only thing that really is aware is the value that we have. So everything else pretty much means nothing except for the feeling that you can get, and regardless of that, it doesn't need to exist to begin with. So the thing that really matters, the awareness, is the value that we have. If we can feel negative, feel anything, that's when the value comes. And that's where the awareness and the level, and obviously all those things can correlate and mean something. So I mean, if anything, that makes sense. But yeah, we're all victims, we're all violators. Um, Based on circumstance. Circumstance controls us. Deterministic mechanism based on cause and effect. The dice is falling. The dominoes falling. The dice is rolling. I mean, all those things. We can only do so much, but obviously, it's still just a part of the same mechanism that's controlling everything. Anyway, the crude force is controlling everything. Gravity, all sorts of dark energy, whatever. Yeah, universal, blah blah blah. The universe controlling everything. But yes, I mean that's the basic idea. So if there's really anything else to say, I mean I don't know. I think I lost track on a few ideas, but I think you got the basic idea down. I mean, a lot of these videos are just stream of consciousness. I don't really have much to say. Just go with it. I just have a sentence written down, just a little sentence, and then I make a video on it. So um, that's really all I need to mention. And if there's anything else that needs to be mentioned, there's always another video another time. So thank you, and until next time. Bye.